What to look for when you're buying a home. We've got Adam, our special guest, here today to go through all the tricks, the tips, and all the mistakes that you probably see every Saturday. Let's do it. All right, so tip number one when you're inspecting a house, it's actually do the work before you see the house. Adam, I'm sure you'd see this all the time, mate, when people just rock up doing a house inspection and just have no idea, haven't done their research.
You're absolutely right, Jaden. Make sure you've actually had a look, whether it be through RP data, realestate.com, some sort of property portal, actually see what the houses around the area are selling for. A lot of times I get people out there on their first weekend and they're saying, I haven't looked at any houses, I don't know what it's worth. It's kind of like, well
as a real estate agent, what are you thinking then?
Well,
give us the inside tip. That's why we've got you here today, mate.
I'm here thinking you're not ready to buy.
Yeah.
So am I going to be sending you properties that are off market if I take your details? Probably not, because I want to make sure that one, you're qualified, you've got all your pre-approvals and bits and pieces like that, but two, you actually know what you're talking about. So when you go to make an offer or when we're negotiating an offer, you've actually seen what's sold around the area.
So I think tip number one, do your research. We use RP data, so it's a free service, and that all the real estate agents actually use. It gives you sales in the area, it tells you what the owners paid for the property, and like Adam said, at least you know what you're going into. So many times, and mate, I'm sorry to say it, there's a lot of cheeky agents out there that don't even advertise a price online, and you'll go check it out and you think, oh, it's in my budget, and then what happens?
Well, then it's not there, because unfortunately in the back end of realestate.com, agents can put the search price a lot lower than what they're actually trying to chase.
Naughty.
It does happen.
Oh, that's a good little tip. Okay, so tip number two, when you're doing an inspection, again, it's something you want to do before you're at the inspection, is to suss out the location. Mate, what do you look for, even when you're looking for a home, what's the stuff that people need to think about, or when you're selling a home, I guess, what's the important things to think about in a location?
Yeah, look, Jaden, probably the most important things are to find out what the local amenities are. And you can't really do that by just reading an ad and turning up to the open house. You've got to kind of go and suss out what's actually around the area. Can you walk to cafes? Can you walk to the shops? Is there a bus stop? Is there a train station? But also, what kind of traffic is there at different times during the day? Are you on a main road, so you're going to have traffic kind of to and from work, or are you in a school area, so 3 o'clock pickup basically is going to make the street?
This is one of my favorite tips that people always forget about. You go to an inspection on a Saturday when there's no traffic, and I think it's another real estate agent trick, I'm not going to throw it out there, but it's important that if you're going to buy a house, go there during the week. Do your commute on a 7 a.m. on a Monday morning, or try and get home at Friday at 5 p.m. or do the school drop off and see what it's like, because you're right, even the sound, the traffic, you don't know. Airplane's another good one.
Oh, look, sometimes you'll have a flight path, obviously a little bit closer as you get towards the airport and stuff like that. And also train lines. Train noise and main road noise actually tends to get worse as you go up a hill. So you might be thinking you're a couple streets back and you've got a fantastic view, but that noise carries up, whereas if you were down the hill, it kind of flies over the top.
There you go. So second tip is location. Check it out. Another good tip on that is Walk Score. It's a free tool online. You can see the cafes, you can see the public transport. It's an awesome tip, again, to check out before you're actually in the property. So Adam, as we're walking through the house, what's the stuff that you think is important to look through and to look at?
Look, you want to basically see the condition of everything, especially with places like this that have some VJs going on. You want to make sure that there's not too much paint cracking, because that can obviously lead to bits and pieces.
Or floorboards creaking, stuff like that, that it could ultimately cost you a lot more money.
Absolutely.
Even if we come into the bedroom, let's have a look at what's in here. So things to check out, and they're all the little things that add up to big things. I know when I bought my place, it had some pretty cruddy blinds on the window, and I thought that doesn't cost much to fix. In the end, I ended up spending about $4,000 to fix up and change the blinds throughout the house. So it can be all those little things that can add up, and you need to factor in when you're making your offer. Anything else in here, Adam, that would stand out, or things to think about when you're buying a place?
Look, make sure you check out carpets. Unfortunately, with tenanted properties, occasionally you'll get someone that's used the carpet as an ironing board, and you've got a couple bits and pieces where the carpet might need replacing. And if the carpet's a couple years old, unfortunately, trying to get a patch for it is next to impossible, so you're up for a full replacement.
So I think just when you're inspecting a property, the best thing is to take a bit of a systematic approach. So we've got a checklist on our website you can download to check out different things to look at. It's got, are the walls in good condition? Is the floor sound? The things that we mentioned in the video before, because it's all these little things that really can add up to cost you a lot of money. All right, so the next thing to check out when you're in the property is the kitchen. But it's not just to look at the colors and the benches to see if you like it. Adam, what do you look for?
Look, you want to make sure you've actually got enough cupboard space. A lot of these brand new kitchens don't have a full-size pantry, and that can make a big difference when you're actually moving into the home. Also, just check the doors. Open them all up, make sure they actually work. Occasionally you'll find a hinge that's loose or fallen off, and that's just something you're gonna have to worry about down the track.
Another thing I always look at as well is open up under the sink and just have a quick sniff. Sounds a bit weird, but you can smell a bit of mold, you can see if there's damp, and it's pretty common for older homes to have problems like this, but at least you know before you're putting an offer in and spending money on the building and pests that there's nothing too bad down there. All right, Adam, so we're in the bathroom now, a bit echoey. Mate, what are some things to look out for when you're buying a property in the bathroom?
Well, you want to make sure, obviously, what's leaking, what's not leaking, especially in the shower. If you look at where the silicone is, has that started to degrade? Because that's something you're going to have to repair just to keep the water from getting in behind the shower.
It was a problem I had when I bought my house again. I really bought a bad house. I had to get the whole shower re-grouted because it was leaking underneath, and then actually there was damp in the floor under the shower. Luckily the house was elevated and I kind of knew about it before, but it's all these little things that again, it can add up. If you've got a problem there, you got to replace the blinds. If you just rush through the open house and you're like, yeah, hey real estate agent, get out of my way, I'm looking, you're gonna miss all the small things, which again comes back to your checklist. I think a couple other items that Adam mentioned, you've got to check for ventilation in bathrooms. The amount of rental houses I've lived in, I don't know if you have, where they've got mold and stank and they're pretty gross. You can be buying a house like that and you might not even know by not looking up, by not looking at the windows, by not looking under the sink again. Even at the curtains and the state of them in the bathroom, if they're a bit rusty or moldy, maybe they've recently painted the bathroom and there could be bigger problems hiding underneath. All right, Adam, so lastly, outside of the house, this place doesn't really have a garden, but we're out on the deck. In Queensland, this can be a pretty beautiful thing, but a bit of an issue too. What have you seen?
Look, when you're doing your searches through your solicitor, the biggest thing to check is the deck actually approved? And not only was it approved, did they get the final certificate from council? A lot of properties that come through, everything was sorted beforehand, but for some reason the builder just didn't organise that final certificate, and then you're up to basically get one approved, otherwise you could be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I actually had a client that recently had this. They bought a property on the north side of Brisbane. It was beautiful. Had a deck, had a garden, it was gorgeous. They were in their finance due diligence period, did the searches and found that the deck had never been approved by council, which would potentially cost up to $5,000 to get approved and go through the motions. Good thing is he actually used that to chip $5 grand off the contract. Sorry, Adam, cover your ears. As a real estate agent, like, no.
Not so bad. We normally get it organised on the owner's behalf when we're going through if you find out something like that happens. So that's something you can also talk to an agent about. Have that put back onto the owner. Say, if you get it sorted, I'll go ahead.
So another thing outside of the property, which is something that people sometimes forget about, is flooding. In Brisbane, it's obviously a pretty big thing. How can you find out if a property's been flooded?
Look, the best thing to do is jump on the flood awareness maps. Council actually updated them at the end of March, so they're all up to date now, and you can see the differences between overland flow, which is a heavy rain event, and obviously creek and waterway flooding as well. So jump on the Brisbane City Council site and it's all there for you to play with.
All right, and so another one that gets usually found out in the searches are easements. So do you want to just give us a quick idea on that? Because they can really make a huge difference on how much property you're buying.
Yeah, absolutely. So depending on what kind of property you have, you might have a battle axe block where you're running down a driveway. You know, is that land actually associated to your block, or is that on someone else's land, and what rights do you actually have? A lot of people don't know, and it's worth actually finding out, because if you've got to potentially maintain that, so you want to know that you're up for the costs either at the beginning or better off. If you don't have to pay for it, fantastic.
There was a solicitor that we recently helped as well. I think I mentioned this in our last video, but I'm gonna say it again. He bought a property for 400 square meters, let's say. Agreed on a price for whatever it was. Then during his searches, he found that there was an easement down the side of the property, making his land only about 390 square meters. So you're actually able to do this, and you do your searches, you find out what it is. Any other person would just settle it not knowing. But this guy went back, negotiated a bit off the price, and then ended up settling on his house of 390 square meters. So again, it's worth checking out. Look down the side, see if there's any manholes in the backyard, all those simple things that you can actually uncover by doing a really thorough inspection rather than doing the old Harold Holt in and out, and you miss out on all the details. All right, so Adam, top 3 tips you reckon for when you check out a property? What would you say?
Look, make sure you've got all your information sorted first before you get there. So when you're looking there around the property, you actually know what you're doing. Number 2, pay attention closely to the condition of the property. Is the paint actually okay? Or look a little bit further past, especially on properties that have staging in there. That staging furniture can really hide bits and pieces, so pay attention to that.
I'm gonna jump in on that because the thing that people also, and you need to think about, is if you're buying a property in Brisbane, for example, you could be buying a 50 or 60-year-old home. So whilst, if the fan's a bit moldy or rusty or the wall needs a bit of painting, these aren't big things.
No.
If you're getting a building in pests, you might be able to get a little bit off the price, but fair maintenance is kind of something that comes with the territory in Queensland.
Absolutely.
When you're buying these old properties, even everywhere in Australia. So it's worth just thinking about what's significant and what can be easily fixed, and then sort of pricing and sort of approaching the property from that perspective.
And look, number 3, pay attention to the big ticket issues. Make sure you know what decks are there, so when you're actually talking to your solicitors, once you've made the offer, you can actually go through and say, I need to double check that this deck, this shed, this pool, make sure everything's approved. Because if you forget to do that and you settle on the property, unfortunately it's too late.
So that's it, guys. Any comments, leave below. Make sure you subscribe. If you've got any questions, Adam, how do we find you?
Look, details will be down the bottom. Feel free to get in touch. Happy to answer any questions, as I'm sure Jaden is.
See ya.